It should be recording. Oh, there we go.
It's recording.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so in order to create an adverse listing on a particular company, you need to log into the Inoxico core platform. And as I said, you can use the same credentials as you do for TradeShield. Once you're in the core platform, this will be the landing page that you will see in front of you. You will then need to search for that particular company that you'd like to create the adverse listing on. So you can do a search with either using the company name, the registration number, or the VAT number. So you would add in the company details in the search bar, and you would then click on the find button, and that's where the system will then bring up all the companies we have available in our database. If you do a search with the registration number, the system will bring up that particular company linked to that registration number. Okay, so I'm going to select the company that I'm using a dummy company that we use at Inoxico because I don't want to create an adverse listing on other clients' profiles. So what you would need to do is then select that particular company where you'd like to create the listing on. Okay, the system will then take you under this new request tab. Under this new request, you will have access to certain report types. These are the reports that's linked to the workflow in the TradeShield platform. But if you scroll down, you would be able to see the listings report type. So I'm just going to jump into your system. Okay, I'm just trying to get in there. Okay, let's just have a look. Okay, so you'll have a tile called adverse listings where you would be able to list a particular company. It will indicate it's 21 days to list. It's free of charge, so you're not being charged to create this adverse listing. It does allow the customer to dispute, and it will then be an external listing which will show on the company's profile. So whoever goes into that company's profile will be able to see the adverse listing. Let me just see if I can open up. Why is it not allowing me to open up my other screen? Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so this is your system that I've logged into. So when you log into this, the system will take you under the new request tab over here. And if you go down to the bottom, it will then show the adverse listing tile. Okay. So what you would need to do is then click on the select button. So I'm going to do it from the Inoxico account. You'd click on the select button and the system will then open up the next section where you would need to provide the customer details. Okay, so the customer's details is the listing. It's the notification who the listing will be sent to. So the listing notice will be sent to the person below. So you need to ensure that you are providing the correct person at that company who will need to deal with that adverse listing. So you need to type in their name. Wherever there is a red asterisk, it is a mandatory field. You would then need to provide the details for the listing. So the reason for the listing, you'll have the option to select failure to pay due amounts. They hand it over, they are slow payer, or you can select the written off drop-down selection. You need to indicate the date of the incident. So you can add today's date, indicating that this is the date you are creating that listing. If you have an internal reference number that you'd like to link the listing to, you can add in a reference number. This is not a mandatory field. You can also add in the amount that they have outstanding. It's also not a mandatory field. And you would then need to upload formal supporting documentation. So this is where you can also upload, for example, an email you've sent to them advising them that they are being handed over and so on. Or if they haven't paid amounts or they are considered slow payers, you can add in the particular statements that have been sent to them and the emails that have gone through to them with regards to them not paying that particular account. If you'd like to add in additional information for the customer to see, so they will receive an email from the system advising them of the listing, and you can add in an explanation under the additional information field as well. You would then need to provide the requested details. So this is where you would provide your company name, the contact person. So this is the person that will be handling the listing going forward. So at times you may have the person who is requesting this, who is logged into the core platform. They're the ones that's actually creating the listing. But if there's a specific person that needs to deal with the customer with regards to the listing and getting them to pay that outstanding amounts and so on, you can add in that person's credentials over here, and they will receive an email notifying them with regards to that customer's listing as well. Are there any questions so far?
If you can just explain listing, I think terminology. So this is not sending out a letter of demand. This is listing them as a bad pay on a bureau, correct?
Correct. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. It's Rahil here. So yes and no. So in terms of that letter of demand, or in terms of the request that goes out, there is an email that does go out from our database, which is because we're listed as credit bureau, as a credit bureau, that we can send out, and that gets sent out for 21 days consecutively, asking them to please settle the account, at which point you would withdraw the adverse listing. And so in essence, that's how it works currently, in not only in our world, but in the general credit bureau space. Does that answer your question, Johan?
Kind of, Geraldine, just from our legal side, normally we just haven't seen a letter of demand in quite a while.
You're actually managing your debtors very well. But there are other entities that makes use of letter of demands more often than not. So I think from my end, just two questions. As you have alluded to earlier on just now, is the 21 days standard practice, or can one change it to 14 days?
So that is standard practice as per the National Credit Act. So that is what we mandated to do. And that's why it goes out for 21 days. We've got to give them ample notification before listing them. I would confirm on our side, I think we can lengthen the period, but I don't think we can shorten it. I think 21 days is the shortest period of time that we have to notify someone before listing them as an adverse payer on our database.
Okay. Zenith, can I ask you just to go to the drop-down menu where it says hand over? Yeah, there we go. So when you say hand it over, what does that mean?
So that means you basically, the customer has been handed over to legal.
Legal, okay.
So the lawyers, attorneys for collection.
Okay.
What we can do on this, we can add additional fields for you. So if you'd like us to add in a reason for the listing and have your specific reasons over here, we can add additional fields to this drop-down list.
Okay.
So that would be, Geraldine, that would be, could even be handed over internally, isn't to your legal department.
Yeah.
Yes, that's.
So perhaps we should change the word. Can we change the word?
Yeah, so maybe specify it and say hand it over to legal.
Yes.
Or something to that effect. Would it then come to me as well if let's say failure to pay due amounts? Would that also then trigger through to me?
Yes. So if you are logged in and creating the listing, you will receive notifications. You can also add in a specific requested detail. So if it's you, you would add in your details over here that's going to be managing. But if you have, let's say, a staff member that assists you with the listings, they can also receive the email with regards to this adverse listing you are creating on the system.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay, so once you've added in the information, you will then click on checkout. The system will then take you to a page where you would need to confirm your order. It'll advise you the type of order you are purchasing. For example, it will tell you the price, so it's 0. It will also tell you how many you have remaining. It will tell you the company details. And if you'd like to set up a specific team that needs to receive notifications on the specific listing, we can create that in the platform for you. It's not mandatory. You don't have to select a team. So basically how the team works is that all the people that are linked to that specific team will then receive the notifications with regards to the listing being created. And when the customer responds on that listing, they will receive those emails as well. Okay, if you're not going to select a team, it's not mandatory. You will then click on order now. And what the system will do is generate a reference number for that adverse listing you have created. Okay, so this is the reference number you would have received once you have created the listing. On the top of the platform, there is a listings tab. And if you click on this listings tab, this is where you'd be able to track and see where all the listings you have created on your company, from your company on different company profiles. These will all show under the listings tab. You can click on that specific listing. So if I click on this, it will then open up the details of that listing. You are able to see the listing details. So the current status is pending. It will indicate the notification was sent. The reason for the listing. The next step is awaiting notice feedback from the customer. Unless disputed, so unless the customer disputes the listing will become active on this date. So it will give them that 21 days in order to respond and resolve the listing or dispute the listing. If they do not, they will then, the adverse listing will then automatically be created on their company profile. Below that is the timeline. So it will tell you when the listing was created, who created it, and if you added an amount outstanding, and you would be able to see that the listing notification was sent to the customer. Okay, so I'm just going to open up my email so that I can show you what those emails would look like. Okay, so the first email that will go out is to the person who has requested, who has created the listing on the core platform, and it will just indicate the listing has been created for that particular company, and the reason was for handed over. If you click view online, it will take you to the event timeline, and it will show you that the listing notification has been sent. Okay, so that will just take you to the event timeline if you click on that view button. The second email I'm opening up. So this is where if you've added an additional person who needs to be responsible for viewing the listing, they will also receive an email stating that the listing was created and was sent to the subject as well. The customer who the listing has been created on will receive this particular email. It will say you're about to be listed. The reason for the listing, so it will indicate handed over or as a slow player and so on. That will show over here. And then it will say, please take note of the intention to create an adverse listing on that business. They have until the 20th of January 2023, 21 business days, notice from the original date to respond before you are automatically listed. It will also indicate to them who has listed them. So it will have your company name and the reason for the listing. And it also states we recommend that you respond to the listing as soon as possible in order to avoid your business profile being negatively affected. Okay, so the customer, once they receive this listing notification, they do have the ability to click here to respond. Once they click on that field, it will then open up the core platform. It will indicate to them the listing details, why they have been listed. They're also able to see the timeline when the listing was created and the listing notification was sent to them and that they opened the link. On your side, when you go into the core platform, so if I go back to the listings tab and click on the particular listing we have created, you will be able to see that the customer has opened the email indicating that they're about to be listed. Now I'm jumping back to the stage where the customer has opened up the email. The customer does have the ability to dispute. So if they want to dispute, they can click on dispute. And the system will then open up the section and they would need to give a reason as to why they are disputing the listing, and they would need to upload formal documentation with regards to why they are disputing the listing. So this is where they can upload a proof of payment, for example, or any email sent through to your company. They can upload that here, and they would need to then indicate who is the person that is disputing the listing. Okay. If the customer does not dispute the listing, after the 21 days, that adverse listing will then automatically be created on that customer's profile. Okay. If they acknowledge the listing, so they can also click on I acknowledge, and then they would need to indicate who is acknowledging that adverse listing. Okay, so if the customer decides to acknowledge that listing, it will then, the system will then acknowledge it, and that listing will then also become active on that customer's profile. I'm just waiting for that to go through. I think our internet's just a bit slow. They're busy upgrading our cables. Okay, so this is what the customer will see on the timeline, that it has been acknowledged by that particular person. On your listings tab, you would also be able to see that the customer has acknowledged that adverse listing. Right, sorry about this. It still should appear in the next few seconds. Okay, so under the timeline, you'd be able to see the customer has acknowledged the adverse listing. For any listing that you create on the platform, you do have the ability to remove the listing. You also have the ability to resend the listing. So the customer would have, in the timeline, you can track to see if they've opened the email. If they say they have not received it, you can click on resend and it will resend that listing notification to the customer. You can also remove the listing. So in an event where the customer has now paid up that outstanding amount and you no longer want to have that adverse listing on their business profile, you can remove the listing and it will then remove that listing from the customer's profile. What I would like to show you is if I go into this customer's profile on the system. So in order to go to the customer's profile, you can click on the quick view button. It will then open up our online on-file information that we have existing on this customer. This is where it will show the adverse listing. And also when a workflow is kicked off through the TradeShield platform, under the initial risk check stage, you would be able to see if there's an adverse listing on that business. Okay, are there any questions so far while we wait for the online quick view to open up?
Nothing so far on my side.
Okay. Okay, so if I go, so I'm under the quick view now. On the left here, you can click on adverse listings and then it will take you to the adverse listing section, and it will then show you the adverse listing. If there is an active listing on that business, it will then indicate the number of active adverse listings, and under the details, you can then see that the adverse listing has been created. The listing only becomes active after the 21 days. So it gives the customer exactly 21 days to respond or make the additional payments before that listing becomes active on their profile. Okay, so that will show on their profile in the system as well.
Quick question.
Johan?
Is there notification going out to the listing person, or does it just happen automatically?
Yes, so there is a notification that would go out.
Just
So
before
this is
that?
the email that will then. Is this the one once the client, are you talking about when they acknowledge the listing? Or before,
No, so
when
before,
it's created?
so there's a deadline of 21 days, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so if nothing happens in 21 days, does the system automatically then list?
Yes, it will automatically list that customer, and they will receive a notification advising them that they have been listed as a slow payer on the system.
I'm just thinking of, you have to manage 300, would you remember, oh, I need to check this, I need to check that one, oh, this one did pay, so I need to go back and remove it, that kind of issue.
Yeah, yeah, so under the listings tab is where you would be able to keep track of all of them, and you would be able to see which ones are active, still pending, and so on. So to keep track of them, you'd have to go into the listings tab.
But this is also where you would go and delete or remove listings. So, even after they've been listed after 21 days and 30 days later, if they decide to pay you, this is where you'd have to do it, Johan, just because this is, where your workflows would sit for the listings. What's your other concerns though? Or what are your general concerns besides just the number of
because you need
different
to know,
items that you'd have to keep track of here?
Yeah, because we obviously work on multiple systems, so it's a manual thing to go into this and see if what needs to happen. Do I need to remove someone, or because once you click the send button, it's done in your hands. It will automatically list after 21 days, even though the customer may not have acknowledged it yet, but he did pay, for instance. But nobody went back in here to action it.
To remove
take it off.
Yeah.
And then we have issues. If you list them, then it's completely paid. Now, I was just thinking of just a final backstop before that, on day of that expiry.
Yeah, it's a good point. I will make a note of that, Johan, just because we are going to work on some improvements and bringing this into Trade Shield. So yes. I have taken note of that.
Yeah, I think the guys must just diarize as well in their diaries to check and do certain things. I remember at Standard Bank we used to write little blue diaries and manually back in the day.
Yeah. No, but well noted, Jan. I think, in addition to that, obviously the customer is getting frequent reminders of that listing, right? So the chances of them reaching out after having paid you to let you know that they're still getting that email, I would say, are probably quite high. And then obviously at any point in time, you can remove that listing in this list over here.
Now, what I will also do, Johan, is I'll reach out to our tech team to find out if there's a possibility on the final mail that goes out, if a notification can be sent to the lister to say, this customer has not responded for 21 days and will be listed tomorrow. At least then that can be your reminder. So I will check in with them and we'll come back to you on that.
There's the other thing that you showed with regards to resending. Can you, so let's say for instance it's a dud email address. Can you then select another email address on the same thing, or do you have to delete and send a new listing? On this one,
So
when you click resend, can you change the email address or the?
yes, so if you click resend, you do have the ability to add in a new recipient. So you can either click on the previous recipient, or you can add in a new recipient and it will go through to that person. If you'd like it to go to both, you can click on previous and you can add in a new recipient as well.
Yeah.
And then once you click on send, it will go through to both of them.
Does the 21 days then start again from that resend phase? Because let's say there was let's say there was an error in the email address, so obviously it didn't reach the recipient, and you resend it 10 days later, obviously then it discount from that point in time.
Yeah, so it will start tracking it from the time the adverse listing is created on the system. So it won't track it from the new one. What you could do is either remove it and create a new one, in order for you to restart the date that it's actually counting from.
Okay.
But the system will indicate you if the emails failed. So let me just have a look if I can find that email. Yeah, so it will indicate to you that the listing has been sent to that customer. If it hasn't gone through, it will indicate to you that the listing has failed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, are there any other additional questions or clarity you require?
Yes, please. Just clarity on my side on the status. Just to differentiate between pending and active.
Yes.
Yes, just to make sure that I understand the difference between those two. Pending is that you've sent, but it hasn't been acknowledged yet.
So pending basically means that the adverse listing is still in process of being active. Only after the 21 days when their listing becomes active on that customer's profile and it appears on their customer profile, will the status change to active, meaning that it's now available on their profile and that adverse listing is created for them. If it's pending, it means it's still in progress and the listing has not become active as yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we'll do from our side is we'll just create these users. Johan, I'm assuming it's everybody that's in this room that we haven't created user access to for TradeShield as yet.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure, Marianne, if you've met with us before. Apologies if you have, but yeah, if you haven't received TradeShield access as yet, obviously it's that same login details that you're going to use with this link that Zenith sent to utilize the listings function. Then just let us know. Otherwise, that's the section where you do access it, and you go through that process from there.
Marianne is a user on the system. Marianne, have you accessed the TradeShield platform before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, no problem. So you just you all can just use the same login details you use for TradeShield. You just need to go onto the core platform.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, then that's pretty much it from our side. If you do need additional support around this when you utilize it for the first time, please let us know. Johan, is there anyone else that you feel we'd need to introduce this to, or is this the whole team that would actually utilize this feature?
Yeah, this is just a team looking at FPT and TLC. Obviously, there's TLC Namibia as well, and then there's the other companies in the group also using this. Might be a wider audience at that stage. Yeah. Just to before we wrap up, so obviously any user that creates this, it's kind of a final action. So there's no workflow in this, like, for instance, Marion creates the listing, but it goes to Beraldine for final, yes, this can go out, or no, this is not right, it can't go out.
No, yeah, so it doesn't get, it doesn't go through any internal approval or review process, no.
Okay. So I would just advise that we not yet use this until we've updated our internal policy and procedure, and then just advise the people on how to, who will be using this side of things and who will not.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Johan, can I just maybe ask a question here? So after the 21 days and there has been no further movement from the customer, so there's no payment that's come through, nothing. Is it at that point then that I would send out a letter of demand? Post the 21 days.
So Beraldine, your letter of demand would, or your initial letter of demand, or your initial request would happen before this. This is kind of like the final, we're listing you as a bad payer and taking legal action against you, kind of. So this is more of a final letter of demand / listing. This shouldn't be your first point of contact with them, really.
Ah, okay, okay.
Because this is, it's once they've been listed here, any applications, anything that comes through for this particular company onto our portal or any of our other clients, it would notify them that they've got an adverse listing against them, and therefore do not open an account with them, do not allow them to open an account with you. So you really don't want this to be the first port of call. You want to have exhausted a few avenues on your side before going this route.
Okay. Okay.
So that's why I said I think this must not be open for everyone.
Yes. Yes.
I would suggest it only be at legal, Beraldine's office.
So okay. Okay. I'll just chat with you on afterwards. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Lekker.
Excellent. Great. So yeah, thank you all for your time. We do have the check-in again this afternoon for those who are going to be able to join. So could potentially see some of you there. And if there's any additional questions, please reach out, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.